I have some really exciting news to share with you today. Well, it's exciting for me because it's something that I've wanted to do for years, and that is to publish my first zine. So I kind of put this off because even though I've wanted to do it and people have asked me about it a lot, I kind of felt like I lacked the confidence and the technical ability to be able to do it. But with some help from my friend Crixis and my fiance Dominic, I've managed to publish Autumn Days. So this is my first zine, and I hope that it's going to be the start of a series. So in this video, I'm going to kind of talk you through it. We're going to have a flip through so you can see what's inside. And I'm going to talk to you about my experience of making this zine. So let's have a look at the cover first of all. So you'll notice that the illustration for the cover goes all the way along from the front across to the back. And I painted this specifically for the cover. I knew that I wanted this image for the cover and I wanted it to go across both the front and the back. So it's like a continuous image, which I think works really well. And this zine is A5 in size. It has 28 pages. So it's kind of like the size of your average zine, I would say. I did kind of toy with the idea of doing an A6 version, which would have been half this size, and obviously vertical. But I don't know, it felt a little bit too small. I thought I would do an A5 version, and 28 pages is a nice amount. So we're going to have a look through the zine. So on the front inside cover, we have my little blackbird illustration and my sedge warbler. And it says, Autumn Days, a celebration of my favourite season of the year. So my Patreon members who are in a certain tier actually have copies of this zine already, and I've signed them for them as well. And I've actually put them in the shop now, so they're available for everyone finally to buy. I'll leave the link below actually for the shop. The copies in the shop aren't signed. That was a special thing for my Patreon members. But I'm excited to share this with you because it really is a celebration of my favourite season. I actually wanted to include a few photos in the zine as well, because I felt like if I share the local landscapes with you, you'll see where the inspiration for my work comes from. And I always think that's quite interesting to see the inspiration for the actual artwork. So the villages that surround me, I would say they're very influential on my work. The rolling hills, the beautiful little cottages, this kind of cozy countryside feeling. And I think that this image really sums it up. And I took this in early September of this year. Dominic and I went to Monk's House, which is a National Trust property, and it was the former country home of Virginia Woolf and her husband. So it's a really gorgeous place. It's very inspiring and has a lovely garden, which is where this photo is taken from. And the garden looks out across the fields and the hills and the other cottages in the village. And so I've written a little bit here about my feelings about autumn, really. So it says, the early days of autumn are among my happiest and most content of the year. In September, the mornings and evenings start to feel chillier, and even on a sunny day, there's a freshness to the air that's been missing all summer. It feels as if I come to life again. September is the perfect time for walking in the countryside and exploring cosy villages with golden light illuminating the winding lanes. And I feel like this photo and this scene kind of represents that perfectly. I remember when we went here, it was such a relief to not be in the heat of the sun. Even though it was a beautifully sunny day, it was like that lovely crisp autumn feeling rather than feeling roasting hot like you do in the summer. So yeah, that's a little bit of the backstory behind that photo. So on the next page, we have my painting, which is called Early Autumn, and it kind of seemed to fit with that. So I decided that that should follow on and just fill the entire page, because you can really see the watercolour paper, you can see the texture and all of the granulation of the paint and everything. So I wanted this printed quite large, and yeah, so that's this kind of speaks of September to me, this painting, when you still have a lot of trees that have their green leaves, but you've got some of them, they're slightly turning, and yeah, you're just kind of on the cusp of autumn. So this one is called Cottage Garden, and I painted this earlier this year. And this again is obviously representing autumn, and it gives me that lovely cozy feeling that I get, that very nostalgic feeling that autumn often seems to give me, and I'm sure that a lot of you feel the same as well if you're an autumn lover too. But there's something about the English countryside in the autumn, and in my paintings I often try to convey that feeling, the feeling it gives me, the atmosphere of it. So this isn't of a particular scene, but it's very much like all of my work. It's a blend of observation and imagination. So I look at the landscapes that are around me and I absorb all of that when I'm on a walk or whatever. And when I come back into the studio, I kind of paint from memory a lot of the time, but I'll occasionally use reference images. So it's always a sort of a blend of those really. So on the next page, we have a couple of recent paintings. So this is called The First Winds of Autumn 2, because I already did A First Winds of Autumn. And both of these actually are watercolour and gouache on paper, and they measure 30 by 30 centimetres, which is 12 by 12 inches. So they're quite a nice size. This one is November Fields in Surrey. So when I painted this one, I was very much thinking of the view we have from our window, because we're on the top floor of a Victorian house, and we have a view across the fields and the hills, in particular Leith Hill. I wouldn't say this is based exactly on that view, but I definitely took my inspiration from it. And the beautiful colours that you see in the autumn, certainly when you really get into autumn in November. And some of the trees are starting to look a little bit sparse. Well, I say a little bit, they're actually bare. But you know how you get that kind of mix where you have some evergreen trees and bushes that look this lovely dark green, and then you have the really vibrant colours of autumn. And then some of the trees by that point have also lost their leaves, and yeah, it kind of represents one of those really cosy, overcast autumn days where you might go out for a walk and then look forward to getting in and having a cup of tea or a hot chocolate by the fire or something like that. So yeah, I wanted those two together. I kind of felt like it was quite nice to have those facing each other. So another thing I wanted to do with the zine was include a little bit of my process. I do like the idea of doing a zine which is just my illustrations, and that's something that I'm considering for the future. But this one is a real mix of my inspirations, my materials and my artwork. So this shows the watercolour palette. In fact, I'll read this actually, I'll just read it to you. It says, "This is the watercolour palette I used for most of the paintings in this zine. I call it my warm toned palette, even though there are a few cooler toned colours for contrast, notably these ones. And I've been using it for the past couple of years. I tend to work in watercolour for the main parts of the painting, and then I add gouache for any opaque details and patterns. So I often work with a mixture of watercolour and gouache. It's quite rare that I work with just watercolour. But yeah, this palette is the one that I've used for most of the paintings in this scene. I also wanted to include some favourite colour swatches, some favourite colours. And so we have my autumn palette of favourite watercolours, and I've listed them all here. So you have the brand and you have the colour, and they're a mix of handmade colours and big brands. And then I did the same for coloured pencils. So we have, a real mix of brands here. I can see a lot of Caran d'Ache and Derwent. Some Holbeins in there too, I think. But yeah, these are some of my favourite colours that I like to use for autumn drawings and paintings. So hopefully, if you're an artist, that will be quite useful to you, or even if you're just, I don't know, interested in what I use, that could be quite interesting to look at. I wanted also in the zine to kind of have some prompts for you. So I have here 10 ideas for autumn sketching, and the prompts are toadstools and mushrooms, nuts and seed heads, autumn colours, moth, harvest moon, an old treasure, cosy evening, bonfire, cottage and footprints. So 10 different prompts to inspire your own artwork. And the story behind this image actually is it's something that Dominic and I did together. These are pine cones and leaves and conkers and little acorns, mostly, in fact, probably almost exclusively gathered by Dominic in the garden. And we laid them out into this kind of wreath shape and thought we would just kind of put the text on top of that. So yeah, we had fun doing that together. And this is my female pheasant sketch. So this was from one of the Zoom timed drawing sessions that I host on my Patreon. And I really like this sketch. It's very loose for me, it's very different, but I felt like it's quite interesting to include maybe just a little bit of my sketchbook in the zine too, rather than just finished paintings. So yeah, that's my little pheasant. And it's nice to include her in this. So here we have another one of my autumn paintings from earlier this year. And this is called An Autumn Walk. This is in watercolour and gouache again. And this is really concentrating on those rich colours of autumn and the patterns that you see, the patterns in the fields and on the bushes and so on. That lovely texture here as well with the watercolour paint where it's kind of granulating. I love that. These lines that I put in my fields, these are something that I have been doing for absolutely years. We're talking probably, I want to say maybe about 15 to 20 years I've been doing this, but only more recently in watercolour, because I used to paint a lot on canvas. I still do, but I've moved over to watercolour a lot more recently. And yeah, the lines that you see in the landscape in the fields have always fascinated me. And I think they're really an interesting way of bringing your eye into a scene, and kind of sometimes, depending on what you want to achieve, you can kind of get the viewer's eye to move across the painting. I actually have I do have a video about that on my Patreon, about how I add these lines and patterns to create texture and create interest and to add movement to a painting. So yep, that's An Autumn Walk. So here on this page, now this photo is one that I took a couple of years ago from our kitchen window. This is the view from our kitchen window. You can only just vaguely see the hill in the background because it was a very foggy day. Now on this page, there's a little, what Dominic called a little Easter egg. And I wonder whether you can see him. Can you see what it is? I'm going to give you a moment. If you see it, actually at this point, write in the comments below what you see. What do you think I'm talking about? Okay, I'm going to tell you. It's this tiny little bird sitting on the gutter here. He is my little sedge warbler. He's a little illustration and Crixus added him in there. We were designing this together and we thought it would be fun to pop him on the gutter there, and he actually looks like a real bird. You look at this quickly, you probably wouldn't even realise, but he is my little illustrated bird. So to tell you a little bit more about this photo, I'm going to read what I've written here. So it says, "This is the view from our kitchen window on a November morning a couple of years ago. We live on the top floor of a Victorian country house in Surrey with a view of Leith Hill. I love misty autumn mornings like this, and I can almost smell the bonfire smoke in the air as I look at this photo. One of my favourite things about autumn is the smell of chimney smoke and bonfires. Both of these give me such a cosy, nostalgic feeling." And I think it looks so beautiful when we look out of the window and the trees are this colour, and they're gradually now in October, they're gradually turning. So they're looking slightly like this, though as I record this video, not quite as autumnal as that, but it's coming, and yeah, I really love it. So this page is a spread that I did in my sketchbook recently, and this was actually from images on one of Crixus's Zoom sessions, and it wasn't done during the actual live session. I actually used the photos afterwards. And yeah, I just had fun sketching all of these different autumnal nature subjects. So I actually, for this one, I just went in straight away with the watercolour or gouache. Did I use gouache? I'm trying to remember. It's one or the other. But I didn't do any preliminary sketching. So it's basically, I kind of set myself a bit of a time limit and just went in there, tried not to overthink it, and I really love doing this in my sketchbook, actually, just going in and not pre-planning and not doing any sketching like in pencil beforehand, just going in straight away with the paint. And yeah, I just felt like it really fitted in with this scene, so I thought I'd include it. So here we have the painting that's on the cover, so you can see it in its entirety. And this has a little memory, actually, of an autumn or autumns from my childhood. So this says, "When I was a child, we would go and gather chestnuts at a place called Leeks Hill in Woodbridge, Suffolk, during the half-term school holiday in October. Sometimes my nana would come too, and I always loved these outings, the leaves crunching underfoot as we walked through the woods. It felt like we were on a mission, and it was so satisfying to fill our bag with gleaming brown chestnuts." So that's a really nice memory that I have of the autumns of my childhood, going there in the school holidays, and yeah, it always seemed like a bit of an adventure. And it's kind of stuck with me all these years later, so I wanted to include it in here. And so we come to the final pages. So on the inside of the back cover, I decided to use this photo that I'd taken when I was at Hampton Court Palace. And now this was, I'm thinking, October of 2023. So we actually went there. I was like a Historic Royal Palaces member. Dominic and I were members for a year. And so we could go as many times as we liked. And also we got special privileges, I guess you could say. And one of those was to be able to go on a ghost tour of Hampton Court Palace after it had closed to the public. And you had to pay extra for that, but it was well worth it because it was an amazing evening. And so I took this, we went in the afternoon, and I took this photo as we were kind of wandering around the palace grounds, and I loved it because it just looks so typically autumnal. And yeah, that's so typically me with the skirt and the boots and the scarf. Yeah, that was a really fun ghost tour, and we found out a lot of fascinating facts. I would highly recommend it. But yeah, this was during the afternoon while we were just looking around while all the visitors were still there and we were waiting for our ghost tour to start. So it says at the end, with special thanks to my friend Crixus and my fiance Dominic for their technical help, and my Patreon members whose support allows me to work on projects like this zine. And then it has all of my details here and the little sedge warbler illustration again. So that is my first published zine, and I hope that it will be the first of many. So I'm excited when I make more to share them with you. But if you'd like to get your hands on a copy of this one, I have them in the shop now, so I'll leave all the details down below. And if you are a Patreon member in the Arts and Crafts Club tier and up, you actually get a 15% discount code to use in my shop. And it's on my Patreon at the moment, and it's valid until December. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed that little look through my zine, and I'm going to leave you with some images of the garden that I took the other day while I was walking around, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy a look around our autumn garden. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And I don't know, there's that thing called hyping. If you have that opportunity to hype this video, maybe do that as well. That would be great because it would help it reach a wider audience. But thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon with the Derwent Drawing Favourites video. I'm going to share my favourites of the new Derwent Drawing pencils. I've picked 30 favourites, and that's coming up soon.